5 years after the divorce, Lena had perfected the quiet art of disappearing. She chose mornings when the market was half empty, when the elderly argued over fruit prices and delivery trucks blocked half the street. She dressed plainly, hair pulled back, no makeup beyond concealer for the dark circles that never quite faded. It wasn't fear that guided her anymore, it was habit. A life carefully arranged to avoid collisions with the past. Noah sat in the child seat of the shopping cart, kicking his sneakers against the metal frame as he hummed a tune from a cartoon Lena didn't recognize. The sound grounded her. Everything she did was for him. Every decision, every sacrifice. "Mom," he said, leaning forward, "can we get the chocolate cereal? The one with the dinosaur." She smiled despite herself. "That cereal is mostly sugar." He grinned. "So am I." She laughed quietly and turned the cart toward the breakfast aisle. As she reached for a modest box of oats, she felt it, the strange tightening in her chest, the sense that something had shifted. The air felt heavier. Then she heard the voice. "Sorry. Didn't mean to block the aisle." The words were casual, polite, ordinary, but Lena's fingers locked around the cereal box. She knew that voice the way one knows thunder before the storm fully arrives. Her heart began to race, blood rushing so loudly in her ears it nearly drowned out the hum of the freezer units. She turned slowly. Daniel Cross stood 3 feet away. Not the man from framed photographs or business magazines, but unmistakably him. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in dark jeans and a fitted jacket that probably cost more than her month's rent. Time had sharpened him. Lines near his eyes, a touch of gray at his temples, but he carried himself with the same controlled confidence that had once made her feel both safe and invisible. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "Lena," Daniel finally said, her name softer than she remembered. "Wow, I didn't expect to see you here." Her throat felt dry. Daniel. The sound of his name on her lips stirred memories she had spent years locking away. Late nights in glass offices, whispered apologies, promises that never quite materialized. "I thought you moved," he said. "I did," she replied quickly. Too quickly. "Just visiting." Her eyes dropped instinctively to Noah. "No." She shifted the cart, angling it slightly, her body forming a barrier. Her hand rested protectively on the handle as if that alone could hide the truth. Daniel followed her movement, and then he saw Noah's legs. Small sneakers. Restless. Familiar in a way that made his brow furrow. Daniel began, then stopped himself. Lena smiled tightly. "I should go." Noah twisted around in his seat. "Mom, you forgot the..." "Sweetheart," Lena interrupted, forcing cheer into her voice, "remember what I said about inside voices?" Noah nodded, then glanced at Daniel with open curiosity. "Hi." The single word landed like a dropped plate. Daniel's gaze met the boy's, and his breath caught. The resemblance hit him all at once. The dark hair, the sharp, observant eyes, the slight tilt of the head when he studied something new. It was like looking at a living echo. "How old is he?" Daniel asked quietly, though something in his expression suggested he already knew. Lena's pulse thundered. "It doesn't concern you." Daniel straightened, his face carefully neutral, but his eyes betrayed him. "Lena," she pushed the cart forward. "Excuse us." She brushed past him, her shoulder nearly touching his arm. For a brief second, the scent of his cologne, clean, familiar, threatened to pull her back into another life. She didn't look at him again, but she felt his gaze burning into her back as she hurried toward the checkout. Noah chattered about dinosaurs and cereal, blissfully unaware of the earthquake that had just split his mother's world open. At the register, Lena's hands trembled as she fumbled for her card. "Ma'am," the cashier asked gently. "Yes, sorry." The receipt printed. The cart rolled forward. Outside, the sunlight felt too bright, too exposing. Lena stopped beside her car and leaned against it, breathing hard, as if she'd run miles instead of aisles. Daniel Cross had seen her. And worse, he had seen her son. As she buckled Noah into his seat, her reflection stared back at her in the window. A woman no longer running from the past, but no longer able to hide from it either. The market doors slid shut behind her, but the truth had already followed her out. Lena didn't remember the drive home. She knew she had stopped at red lights, turned corners, parked in the narrow space outside her apartment. but the motions were mechanical, her mind stuck in the frozen moment when Daniel's eyes had locked onto Noah's face. The image replayed over and over, each time sharper, more dangerous. "Mom." Noah's voice cut through her thoughts. "You missed the song." She glanced in the rearview mirror. His reflection stared back at her, trusting, open, unaware of how close his world had come to changing. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "What song?" "The dinosaur one," he replied, undeterred. He launched into it again, waving his arms dramatically. She smiled, but her hands tightened around the steering wheel. Inside the apartment, Lena moved quickly, unloading groceries with unnecessary force. The cereal box thudded onto the counter. Milk sloshed. She needed motion. Stillness would let the fear catch her. Noah climbed onto a stool and watched her. "Was that man your friend?" Her heart skipped. "No," she said too fast, then softened her tone. "He's someone I used to know." He looked sad, Noah said. Children always noticed more than adults gave them credit for. Lena turned away so he wouldn't see her face. Sometimes grown-ups feel that way. She tucked Noah into bed earlier than usual, lingering beside him longer than usual. When he finally drifted off, clutching his stuffed dinosaur, Lena sat on the edge of the bed and pressed her fingers into the blanket, grounding herself. 5 years, she thought. I gave myself 5 years of peace. The phone rang. She stared at it from across the room, her chest tightening with every vibration. Unknown number. She didn't answer. It rang again, and again. Finally, with a shaky breath, she picked up. "Hello, Lena." Daniel's voice was lower than she remembered, stripped of its usual polish. It still carried the same weight. "How did you get this number?" she demanded. "I still had it," he admitted. "I wasn't sure it would work." She laughed once, sharp and humorless. "Of course you did." There was a pause. "Is he mine?" The question was quiet, not accusatory, not angry, just raw. Lena closed her eyes. The kitchen light buzzed faintly overhead. "You don't get to ask that." "I saw him," Daniel said. "I know what I saw." "What you saw," she snapped, "was a child you have no claim to." Another pause. Longer this time. When Daniel spoke again, his voice cracked. "How old?" She leaned against the counter, suddenly exhausted. 5. Daniel exhaled sharply, as if the air had been punched from his lungs. "Jesus. You left," she said, the words rising before she could stop them. "You left, Daniel. You chose your company, your expansion plans, your board meetings. You didn't want a family." "That's not." "It is," she interrupted. "I begged you to slow down. To notice. You were never home." Silence filled the line, heavy and undeniable. "I would have stayed," Daniel said finally. "If I had known." "But you didn't," Lena replied. "And I wasn't going to chase you with a pregnancy test while you were signing mergers." Her voice softened despite herself. "I made a choice. For my son." Daniel's breathing was uneven now. "I want to meet him." "No, I'm his father." "You're a stranger." "I can learn," he said urgently. "I can be." "No," she repeated, firmer. "You don't get to walk in now and disrupt his life." "Lena," Daniel said quietly, "I've disrupted my own life plenty. This matters." She hung up. The silence afterward was deafening. Lena slid down the cabinet until she was sitting on the kitchen floor, arms wrapped around her knees. She stayed there until the cold tile seeped through her clothes and her thoughts slowed enough to breathe again. Later that night, Noah padded into the living room in his pajamas. "I had a bad dream," he whispered. She pulled him onto the couch, wrapping a blanket around them both. He curled against her instinctively, his head fitting perfectly under her chin. "You're shaking," he said sleepily. She kissed his hair. "I'm okay. Promise." She hesitated, then whispered, "I promise." But even as she said it, she knew it wasn't entirely true. Because Daniel Cross was not a man who let go easily. And now he knew. As Noah fell back asleep, Lena stared into the dark, the weight of 5 years pressing down on her chest. She had believed the past was behind her, filed away with old documents and faded memories. She had been wrong. Some truths didn't stay buried. They waited. The knock came just after sunset. Lena knew it was him before she reached the door. Her body recognized the moment the way it had learned to recognize disappointment, instantly, painfully, without evidence. Her pulse quickened as she rested her hand on the doorknob, counting her breaths. No, she whispered to herself. You don't get to do this. She opened the door anyway. Daniel stood in the narrow hallway, rain dripping from his hair onto the worn carpet. His coat was soaked through, his shoulders tense, his jaw clenched as if he'd rehearsed 1,000 speeches and forgotten every one of them. You can't be here, Lena said. I know, he replied. But I couldn't stay away. She laughed softly, bitterly. That's new. I deserve that, he said. But please, just 5 minutes. Behind her, a small voice drifted from the living room. Mom. Lena stiffened. Noah appeared at her side, clutching his dinosaur, eyes wide with curiosity. He looked up at Daniel without fear, only interest. Daniel froze. Time seemed to stop. There was no denying it now. The resemblance was overwhelming in the soft light of the hallway. Same eyes. Same expression when studying something unfamiliar. Even the slight crease between the brows when concentrating. Daniel swallowed hard and slowly crouched down to nose level. Hi, he said, carefully. I'm Daniel. Noah considered this. You're tall. Daniel let out a breath that almost sounded like a laugh. I get that a lot. Lena's chest tightened. Noah, go sit on the couch. But, please. Reluctantly, Noah shuffled back into the living room. Lena turned on Daniel, her voice low and fierce. You don't ever come here again without asking. You're right, he said immediately. I was wrong. Seeing him at the market, I haven't slept since. She stepped aside, conflicted, then gestured sharply. 5 minutes. Inside, Daniel stood awkwardly, taking in the small apartment, the mismatched furniture, the framed crayon drawings on the wall, the quiet evidence of a life built without him. This is his home, Daniel said softly. Yes, Lena replied, the one I made. They sat across from each other at the kitchen table, Noah watching cartoons just out of sight. Daniel's hands were clasped tightly, knuckles white. You should have told me, he said, not accusing, pleading. And you should have listened, Lena shot back. But we don't get to rewrite who we were. Daniel nodded slowly. I was blind. I thought I had time. You thought you were irreplaceable, she corrected. You always did. He winced. Maybe. But I would have chosen him. I swear it. She studied him. Not the CEO. Not the man she once loved. Just a man sitting in her kitchen, unraveling. You don't get to swear now, she said. You weren't there when I threw up every morning alone. Or when I signed the divorce papers with one hand and held my stomach with the other. Daniel's eyes filled. You were pregnant when we divorced. Yes. He bowed his head. I thought you just wanted out. I wanted support, she whispered. I wanted a partner. Silence settled between them, thick and fragile. I want to be part of his life, Daniel said at last. Not to disrupt it, to add to it. Lena shook her head. You don't add a father like an accessory. You either commit or you destroy. I will commit, he said instantly. You don't know what that means, she replied. It means school plays and sick days. It means showing up even when it's inconvenient. Daniel looked toward the living room, where Noah laughed at something on the screen. I missed 5 years, he said hoarsely. I don't want to miss another day. Noah wandered back in, climbing onto Lena's lap. Are you mad? He asked her. She kissed his forehead. No, baby. He looked at Daniel again. Are you leaving? Daniel hesitated. Soon. Noah nodded solemnly. Okay. You can come back if you want. Lena stiffened, but Daniel didn't smile. He looked stunned. I'd like that, he said quietly. That night, after Daniel left, Lena lay awake staring at the ceiling. Her walls felt thinner. Her world, less controlled. The next weeks were cautious and tense. Daniel came when invited. He listened more than he spoke. He learned Noah's favorite foods, his bedtime routines, his fears. Lena watched from a distance, ready to pull away at the first sign of abandonment. Lawyers were mentioned, boundaries argued, trust tested, until one evening, Noah asked, why does he leave every time? Lena had no answer that didn't hurt. She realized then that the secret she'd protected for 5 years was no longer shielding her son. It was cutting him. And for the first time, Lena faced a terrifying possibility. That letting Daniel stay might be less dangerous than keeping him out. Change didn't arrive all at once. It came quietly, On Saturday mornings when Daniel showed up 10 minutes early and waited in his car so he wouldn't overstep. In the way he asked before hugging Noah, even when Noah was already holding his arms out. In the small notebook he carried, where he wrote down things Lena mentioned in passing, favorite snacks, school pickup times, the name of Noah's teacher. Lena noticed everything. She noticed how Daniel listened now, really listened, as if afraid that missing a single detail might cost him everything. She noticed the way he flinched when Noah scraped his knee, then steadied himself and knelt down calmly, speaking softly, letting Lena lead. And she noticed how tired he looked, not the polished exhaustion of late-night meetings, but something deeper. The fatigue of regret. One evening, Noah's school hosted a small performance. Nothing special. Paper costumes, off-key singing, parents recording on phones. Lena almost told Daniel not to come. Almost. But when Noah spotted him in the crowd, his face lit up so brightly it hurt to look at. Daniel didn't raise his phone. He just watched. Afterward, Noah ran to him. "Did you see me? I didn't miss a second," Daniel said, voice thick. That night, Lena stood at the sink washing dishes while Daniel dried beside her, their movements careful, practiced. Noah played on the floor nearby, building something that looked like a dinosaur rocket hybrid. "I'm not trying to fix the past," Daniel said quietly. "I know I can't." Lena nodded. "Good. Because I won't let you rewrite it. I just want to do better now." She glanced at him. "Doing better isn't dramatic. It's boring. It's consistency." "I know," he said. "I used to think consistency was optional." She almost smiled. Weeks passed. Then months. There were setbacks. Daniel missed a pickup once because of an emergency meeting and showed up at Lena's door afterward, shaken and apologetic, as if expecting to be shut out forever. Lena didn't yell. She didn't forgive instantly either. She explained, slowly, clearly, and he listened. One rainy afternoon, Noah got sick at school. Lena was stuck in traffic, panic rising with every red light. When she finally arrived, Daniel was already there, coat wrapped around Noah, murmuring reassurances. Noah slept the whole way home. Later, as Lena watched Daniel tuck him into bed with surprising gentleness, something in her chest loosened. Not trust. Not yet, but space. That evening, after Noah fell asleep between them on the couch, Lena and Daniel sat in silence, the glow of the TV muted. "He smells like soap," Lena said softly, half smiling. Daniel chuckled. "I may have overdone it." Then, more seriously, "I don't want to replace anything in his life. Or in yours." Lena studied him. "You can't replace what never existed." He nodded. "Then I want to build something new. Slowly. On your terms." She leaned back, exhaustion washing over her. "Being here," she said, "is the hardest part." "I know," Daniel replied. "That's why I'm choosing it. Every day." She believed him. Not completely, but enough. One night, as Lena watched Daniel read Noah a bedtime story, stumbling over character voices and laughing at himself, she realized something startling. She wasn't waiting for him to fail anymore. She was watching him try. Later, as Daniel stood at the door preparing to leave, Noah hugged him tightly. "Don't forget," he said, "Saturday pancakes." "I won't," Daniel promised. After the door closed, Lena rested her forehead against it. 5 years ago, she had sworn she would never let this man back into her life. And yet, here he was, not the same man, not the same circumstances. Daniel didn't ask for forgiveness. He earned permission. Months later, at the market, the same one where everything had unraveled, Lena stood beside Daniel as Noah debated cereal choices with dramatic intensity. "Dinosaur or chocolate?" Noah asked. "Both," Daniel said confidently. Lena raised an eyebrow. "Nice try." They laughed. 5 years after the divorce, Lena finally understood something she hadn't allowed herself to before. Family wasn't defined by absence or mistakes or timing. It was defined by who stayed. And this time, Daniel stayed.